Are you somebody who's wondering how to break into a certain industry? Maybe you're looking for a career change. You just need a little bit of motivation or insight into how to do it. Or maybe you're in college and you're just trying to figure out what the heck do I want to major in? Or you're a recent graduate and you're going for that first job. No matter where you're at, stick around because I'm about to share with you my top 5 tips on how I went from a college football Division I staff member to working in the tech industry. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of Mindset, Motivation, and Guidance. I'm your host, Brett Parker. You're probably thinking to yourself, who the heck is this kid in front of the camera with a backwards hat on and a black t-shirt, and what makes him qualified at all to give me any kind of guidance? Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a former Division I college football staff member turned real estate professional, both on the commercial and residential side of things, who now works in the tech space for a company that you've probably heard of, Meta, formerly known as Facebook. I started this channel as a personal side project, hopefully to be able to provide some guidance, some insight, education, tips, tricks, and just to be able to give back. The truth is, we all need a little bit of motivation, encouragement, and guidance from time to time. The world is a pretty difficult place out there. And honestly, sometimes you look around and you feel like everybody else has it together. I'm here to tell you that that's definitely not the case. The vast majority of people have either been in your shoes where they're looking to be able to kind of get out of a rut, get to that next phase in life. And honestly, there's probably a lot more people than you realize are in that situation right now. If anything that I've shared with you so far has resonated with you, I invite you to click that like button, add a comment down below, and subscribe to this channel, where I'll be putting out weekly videos similar to this one right here. Okay, let's dive in. Here's my tip number 1, research. And I think this is the most important out of everything. Because honestly, in order to know where you're going, you need to know where the heck you want to go to even begin with. Research can be anything from searching within to determine what are my likes, what are my interests, what are my passions. Because honestly, if you don't get to the root of that and you don't sit down and you take the time to actually think that through, you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna realize I'm living a life that's not even my own. And so honestly, it's the best thing to sit down, do it right now. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I promise you'll thank me later. So you've taken an opportunity to sit down, you've done a deep dive, you've been able to come up with, you know what, I might be interested in XYZ. Next, we're gonna go jump on LinkedIn. We're gonna start looking up some of those companies that you just might be interested in, some jobs, some roles, and really we're just gonna kind of continue to get those creative juices flowing. Okay, now that you've kind of come across a couple profiles, let's start to put together the pieces. Are there some kind of commonalities that you're starting to see? Whether these individuals have certain educational backgrounds, whether they've been in certain roles or certain industries for a while, how long were they in certain roles, right? That length of time. Honestly, we're just trying to get a clear picture and understanding of what kind of skills and what kind of experience do I need to gain, regardless of if it's in that specific role that that individual held, so that I can be able to set myself up to ultimately land a role that's very similar to this. This is important because, as you'll see in future tips, we want to be very strategic in how we're going to get you from point A to point B, right? We're going to map this out and we're going to help you be able to, all along the way, be able to check those boxes of, okay, I feel like I'm at a good point in being able to gain this experience, this skill set, and I'm slowly setting myself up to ultimately reach that end goal. Okay, time for a bit of story time. Let me tell you about whenever I was back in college. Honestly, I was a business major. I had no idea what I wanted to do with that. The only reason that I picked that was because everybody else around me, including my family members, closest friends, shared, oh, you want to be successful? You want to make a lot of money? Go the business route. The only problem was I didn't enjoy it at all. Sure, I liked some of the classes, but overall I was just like, this isn't the direction that I see my life going whatsoever. Growing up in Texas, I was a big football fan at the time. And so I went to the NFL and I started looking at what are the different kind of business roles that kind of correlate between what I'm learning here in school and can kind of set me up to, I don't know, maybe one day work in the NFL. Well, as I was doing a deep dive, I came across something even better. It was called the general manager position as well as the player personnel department. I thought to myself, boom, this is perfect. Because for me, what would be better than to get paid to be able to show up every single day to be able to know the ins and outs of a roster, to be able to put together a championship winning team, and then being able to watch that every single Sunday. So I said, this is what I want to do. Okay, so now that I had this picture in mind, I thought to myself again, okay, if there's this going on over in the professional setting, I'm at a Division I university, there has to be something that's fairly equivalent to this, correct? And luckily for me, there was. At the time I was at Brigham Young University. I jumped online to the athletic department directory, searched the football coaching staff, and I came across the director of player personnel. His name was Jeff. And lucky for me, his email account was up there and it was on his profile. I had no idea what was on there because honestly, anybody could have spammed it. Now I'm sure that they do not put those on there because people would be reaching out like crazy left and right. But lucky for me, it was early enough where this was a very kind of new role, everything like that. And so that email account was up there online. I knew from my business classes, okay, in order to be able to cold reach out to somebody, you need to reach out and ask them for an informational interview, right? No strings attached. I just want to know, what was your path? How did you get to where you're at today? And how can I be able to set myself up to ultimately land into the role, because that's the direction that I see my life heading at this time, right? Okay, so fast forward. Jeff and I, we sit down, we have a conversation. Within those first 10 to 15 minutes, he actually opened up and started to share with me that he didn't have enough student help. He wouldn't be able to pay me, but if I'd be interested in it, he'd be able to bring me on and kind of teach me the ropes and give me an opportunity to gain that experience within the college football recruiting space. So of course I jumped on it. I said, absolutely, that's exactly what I'm going to do. See, this is just a simple example of, one, I did my research, I took action, I dove in and kind of reached out to Jeff, put myself out there outside of a comfort zone. Obviously, I had no idea that this was the direction that I was going to take me in, but that's how I got my foot into the door initially. We'll finish this story up later and I'll kind of tell you how that then transitioned into ultimately taking me down a different path. But this wraps up and takes us over into my tip number 2, which is the cold call and the reach out part. Honestly, this sounds way more intimidating than what it is. So simply, we're gonna go back to LinkedIn, those profiles that we were talking about in tip number 1. We're gonna sign up for LinkedIn Premium, which will allow us the opportunity to send a message to them and it will be received in their inbox. I have no idea how much this costs right now, but it's gonna be the best investment that you're gonna make. It's gonna be a couple of bucks and it's gonna allow you the opportunity to, again, send that initial message where you can shoot your shot similar to what you do in the DMs, right? Okay, so we're gonna do very similar to what I shared in my personal experience with Jeff. We're gonna reach out to those individuals. We're gonna ask them, can I do an informational interview? And honestly, one thing that you need to understand is that people inherently like to talk about themselves. And I do not mean that in a negative way whatsoever. You're giving somebody else the opportunity to be able to show their path, their experience. It's important, it's valuable, and it's something that people dedicated so much time, energy, and attention into, and it's something that's important to you. Who wouldn't love the opportunity to be able to share that with somebody else, knowing that at one point I was in that person's shoes as well? And so don't overthink about it, don't psych yourself out, and we're gonna kind of use this human mindset, this inherent human want to be able to share our information with other people to our advantage. Okay, that leads me to point number 3, which is mindset. Know before you're going in there that you will face adversity. You're gonna shoot out a lot of messages and the vast majority of them are gonna go unresponded to. That doesn't mean rejection. Do not take it that way. People are extremely busy. They have their both personal lives, they have their work lives, and oftentimes they don't even see the messages that are coming through. And honestly, speaking from personal experience, there are oftentimes spamming that is going into our inboxes on LinkedIn. There are also recruiters that are reaching out about roles that might not even be equivalent to anything at all that we're sharing. And so do not take anything personally or to heart. From personal experience, whenever I got my current role here at Meta, I went back and I looked at it before I started this video. I reached out to over 200 people. That's how many messages I sent out. You wanna know how many messages I got back? 6. Not a very high success rate, right? But there was one individual in particular that made the biggest difference, and that's ultimately how I landed my current role here at Meta and got my foot in the door. Okay, so we're gonna go back into personal story time. So the individual that did reach out and respond back to me, I came across their profile because they went to the same university I did, and I saw that they had a mutual contact, and it was somebody that I went to high school with, but I hadn't talked to in years. And so I just sent, again, kind of a cold outreach message sharing, hey, it's great to be able to see a former Cougar. I see that you have this current role here at this company. I'm really interested in being able to learn how you got to this point. Oh, I also see that you're connected with one of our mutual friends. I went to high school with them. Funny, the world's a small place, right? Surprising enough, this individual responded back. Come to find out, their freshman roommate, their freshman year in college, was the person that I had gone to high school with. And so they instantly had that connection. They were like, yes, for sure. I would love to be able to jump on a phone call with you. Boom. They sent me over their times, dates that work best for them. And just like that, I had a 15 to 30 minute phone call that was set up with somebody that was in a role that I was extremely interested in. Okay, fast forward. Me and this individual had a great 30-minute phone call. At the very end, I asked, okay, what kind of advice do you have for me? And they shared that they got their current role by starting in a contract position. They would keep their eyes out for anything that popped up, and they would shoot it my way and be more than happy to provide an internal referral if it's something that I was interested in. Lucky enough for me, a couple of days later, there was a role that popped up. I shot it over to this individual. They were more than happy to be able to provide a referral for me. And boom, that got sent off to a recruiter. And lucky for me, just a couple days later, I got a phone call from them and the interview process started from there. Okay, this brings me to point number 4, which I just shared with you how I went from getting my initial foot in the door with that interview. We're now gonna fast forward. I was lucky enough to be hired at Meta, but I'm in a contract role and it only lasts for 1 year. And so I know that I need to come in guns a-blazing and make an impact right off the bat. And so my tip number 4 is hard work. Okay, it sounds extremely cliche to say, but I cannot stress enough how much hard work and having a positive attitude and a mindset makes a world of a difference in a place such as Meta, where it's fast paced, there's a lot of things that are moving, and honestly, college football and real estate were the exact same thing every day as well. What you have to understand is no matter what career or what industry you end up in, there are gonna be headaches. There are gonna be things that are annoying, that are broken. There are gonna be fires that need to be fixed. You will never land in a role where things are just peachy all the time. And if they are, guess what? You're probably not gonna get paid that much to be in that role either. The better you are at being able to problem solve and being able to bring people together and network and lift others up, the more successful you're gonna be in this role. And so whenever I say hard work, I mean being able to bring all of that together. If you're somebody who's providing that in a room, people gravitate to you. They want to have you around and they want to cheer and they want to see you have success. Honestly, every single day, I think to myself, how in the world did I end up in a room surrounded by all these people that are so much smarter than I am? And this is something that I'm not special whatsoever. And again, this is the whole purpose of this channel, is to be able to share with you. If you can just follow these and set yourself up to have success, you too can end up in these rooms and in these roles where you feel like, wow, how the heck did I end up here? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I firmly believe that I ended up in the role, in the current situation that I'm in, because of my hard work, my mindset, and my positive attitude, which I try my best each and every day. It's definitely not easy because, again, we were just sharing every single industry that you're in is gonna have headaches, but the better you are at being resilient and just showing up every day and saying, I'm gonna give it my best effort, the better off you're gonna be. And along the way, I promise you, you're gonna make a lot of great connections that are gonna set you up for success. Okay, so this brings me to my very last point, number 5, which is find a mentor. Cannot stress enough how much this was a game changer, not only for my life personally, but also within my career. Being able to find somebody and latch onto that individual who has been in your shoes, has gone down that path before, and is able to provide a little bit of guidance, a little bit of insight, and be able to share knowledge that they've accrued over their career has been something that has helped me be able to get from recruiting, where I started whenever I joined Meta, and now I am a risk and operations manager at Meta. There's absolutely no correlation between those two, but it was all through mentorship that ultimately set me up to be able to gain experience in my role in the recruiting space, being able to pick up projects, being able to be exposed to the compliance space, being able to understand this is how our processes, our workflows function. And ultimately, the more that I was able to build that up and flex that muscle and add that skill set to my resume, it made me more attractive for the role that I'm currently in. Okay, so you've heard about getting a mentor before. And again, I want to share a personal experience for you as well. Remember whenever I was telling you about college football and how I got that initial role? Well, the funny thing about that is 3 months into that job where I was working for free, the current person who brought me on into that role then left and took a job elsewhere. They also took one of our other student workers with them and hired him on full time. It just left myself and one other person in the department, and all of a sudden we were the only recruiting individuals that were left there at a Division I university, which still looking back is very crazy to think. So it took about 2 or 3 months to hire somebody to initially take over that person's role. And so whenever they stepped in, all of a sudden they were looking at me like, okay, well, what's going on in the recruiting space? What do we need to do next? It was honestly, it's crazy to look back and think of, but it was just us two for the longest time running a Division I recruiting department. We're coaching staff, were coming to us, asking us about players, everything like that. And in my mind, I'm like, 3 months ago, I had no idea that this world even existed. So it was through that relationship that I built with that individual where they started to mentor me and they shared with me, hey, I think you're really good at this. And at one point, I would love to be able to have the opportunity to hire you full time. I did everything within my power. Again, I worked extremely hard for the next year and a half. Crazy enough, our head coach actually, before I was going to be hired, I was set to graduate in less than a semester. Head coach decided I'm going to go take a head coaching job elsewhere. And so my world got turned upside down. I was like, wow, I was banking on this happening for me. Lucky enough, they hired me as a full-time employee on the other side, and that projected me into the rest of my coaching career. I'm sharing this with you because it was so important for me to be able to find that mentor who saw something in me, and they offered up an opportunity for me to be able to gain extremely relevant experience, to be able to gain exposure, to be able to see, is this a role and is this a job and something that I actually would enjoy, and kind of see myself going down on that path moving forward. Now, in my current role here at Meta, I was again fortunate enough to find an amazing mentor who took me under their wing whenever I was in the recruiting space, and they said, I feel like you have the opportunity to be able to step into other areas. What are your career interests? Where do you kind of see your path going? And for about a year and a half, we had bi-weekly meetings where we would sync up, we would meet, and ultimately they even brought me into some of their projects so that I could get hands-on experience and again be able to network, build exposure, and be able to build up my credibility so that ultimately whenever my current role popped up, I had the confidence and I had the resume that was able to align with the certain job description, what they were looking for. And then whenever I got into the interview, I was able to already share, this is what I'm currently working on here in my space right now. And this is how it correlates over to the role that I'm now applying for. I totally give all the credit in the world to my mentor. I've had some wonderful ones along the way. I still rely heavily on mentorship to this day. And the reason that I'm talking about it with you and I'm so passionate about it is because, again, it made such a difference in my life. Okay, now whenever I share having a mentor, it definitely does not mean that they're gonna be solely reliable from getting you from point A to point B where you wanna go. In fact, it was on me to be able to sit down, have key talking points to be able to talk through in our bi-weekly meetings, being able to share, this is what I'm working on, this is the skill set that I'm focusing on, bounce ideas back and forth off that individual, giving them the opportunity to be able to share their insight, advice on kind of the direction that they would go. But ultimately, it was my responsibility then to go out and to take action on what they were sharing with me. And so for you, once you identify somebody that you really respect, that you really look up to, and you're able to say, hey, can I have 15, 30 minutes of your time bi-weekly, show up be prepared. Let them know how serious you are, not only about their time and about your time, but about getting to that goal. And I promise you along the way, as that individual engages and they're able to see, hey, this is somebody that's extremely on the ball and it's somebody who's taking this seriously, they're gonna naturally start to provide you opportunities and bringing you into spaces that are gonna provide you with opportunities to, again, be able to gain experience that will be applicable to future roles, to future opportunities, and you never know. The world is an extremely small place, especially in corporations, especially in the tech space. That mentor that you're working with right there, one day could be your director, or they could be your colleague, they could be your coworker, or who even knows, maybe one day they're reporting up to you, but they were able to see how much you took to heart their mentorship and how much you took to heart improving and growing within your space. All right, so this concludes the very first episode of Mindset, Motivation, and Guidance. Again, I'm your host, Brett Parker. Hopefully this gave you something for you to be able to walk away from, say, you know what, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna try XYZ, I'm gonna give it a shot, because somehow this kid got from being a Division I college football staff member to working his way into the tech space. And I promise I'm here to be able to share with you, if I can do it, then you most definitely can do it too. So again, if this is something that resonated with you, you found interesting, click that like button, add a comment below, and please subscribe, where I'll be putting out weekly videos similar to this. And if there's something that you're interested in, again, you want me to clarify, talk through, put them down in the comments, and I'll take it on and see if I can make a video about it. But until next time, guys, have a good one.